The roast chicken sat in the center of the table, steam rising from the golden skin, but I'd lost my appetite the moment Diane pulled out the folder. "I have an announcement," my stepmother said, her voice carrying that particular tone of triumph she'd perfected over the past 6 years. She was 52, blonde highlights, professionally maintained, dressed in the kind of casual expensive clothes that screamed, "I have money but I'm humble about it." My half-brother Kyle, 17, barely looked up from his phone. My stepsister Amanda, 23, paused with her wine glass halfway to her lips. Around the table sat various aunts, uncles, and cousins from Diane's side, the full Sunday dinner production she insisted on hosting twice a month. "The cabin in Big Bear," Diane continued, sliding papers from the folder and holding them up like a trophy. "It's legally mine now. See the paperwork? The deed transfer went through last week. I've already started planning. We're having a family reunion there next month, Labor Day weekend. I'm thinking we can fit about 30 people if we rent some tents for the yard." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. The cabin, my father's cabin, the A-frame he'd built himself over 3 summers in the early 2000s, before he met Diane, before the cancer, before everything changed. "That's wonderful, Mom," Amanda said, already pulling out her phone. "I'll make a Pinterest board for decorations. We could do a rustic theme, maybe some." "Diane," I interrupted quietly, setting down my fork, "that cabin isn't yours to transfer." The table went silent. Diane's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. "Excuse me, Dad left that cabin to me. It's in his will. You know that." Diane laughed, the sound sharp and practiced. "Marcus, sweetie, your father and I were married for 5 years before he passed. Community property laws are very clear. Everything acquired during our marriage becomes joint property, the cabin included. He bought it in 2003. You married him in 2018. Details." Diane waved her hand dismissively. "What matters is that I have the legal deed right here, properly filed with San Bernardino County. The cabin is mine. I'm sorry if that upsets you, but sometimes grown-ups have to accept reality." I folded my napkin carefully, placed it beside my plate, and stood. "Enjoy your dinner." "Oh, don't be dramatic," Diane called after me as I walked toward the door. "You're always so sensitive about everything. Your father would be disappointed in this attitude." I didn't respond. I simply left, getting into my car, and sitting in the driveway for a long moment before starting the engine. My phone was already in my hand as I drove, voice dialing the number I'd saved 2 weeks ago. "San Bernardino County Recorder's Office, Fraud Investigation Unit. This is Detective Sarah Vance." "Detective Vance, this is Marcus Webb. We spoke 2 weeks ago about the property transfer attempt on my father's cabin." "Mr. Webb, yes, I was actually planning to call you tomorrow. We've completed our preliminary investigation." I pulled over into a shopping center parking lot. "And, the documents your stepmother filed are definitely fraudulent. She submitted a quitclaim deed, claiming your father transferred the property to her 3 months before his death. However, we've verified several red flags. First, the notary seal doesn't match any registered notary in California during that time period. Second, your father's signature doesn't match samples we pulled from his will, his marriage license, or any other legal documents. Third, and this is the damning part, the document claims to have been notarized on March 15, 2023. Your father was hospitalized and on morphine that entire week. His medical records show he was barely conscious." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "So what happens now?" "We've flagged the deed as fraudulent and placed a hold on the property. No transfers can occur. We've also opened a criminal investigation. I'll need you to come in tomorrow to give a formal statement. Bring any documentation you have, your father's will, trust documents, anything that establishes your ownership." "I have everything." My father was very thorough. "Good. Mr. Webb, I should tell you, property fraud of this type is a felony. If your stepmother knowingly filed false documents, she's looking at significant criminal charges. Grand theft, forgery, filing false documents. We're talking potential prison time." "She knew," I said quietly. "She's known since the day of Dad's funeral, that the cabin was left to me. There were 20 people in the lawyer's office when the will was read. Then she made a very serious mistake. Come to our office tomorrow at 10, we'll go through everything." That night, I sat in my apartment going through the box of documents my father's attorney had given me 18 months ago. Dad died in April 2023, at age 64, the cancer taking him faster than anyone expected. He'd been diagnosed in January, gone by spring, but he'd prepared. Even through the pain and the treatments, he'd made sure everything was documented, organized, protected. The will was clear. The mountain cabin went to me, his only biological child. Diane received the house in Riverside, where they'd lived together, along with his life insurance policy and half his retirement accounts. It was fair, equitable, and legal. The cabin meant more than money. Dad had bought the land in 2003, right after my mother died. He'd spent 3 summers building that A-frame himself, teaching me carpentry, showing me how to read levels and cut angles. We'd spent every Christmas there, every 4th of July, countless weekends escaping the desert heat of Riverside, for the cool pine forests of Big Bear. When Dad met Diane in 2017, and married her a year later, she'd barely tolerated the cabin. Too rustic, too remote, no cell service, the shower pressure was terrible. She'd gone once, complained the entire weekend, and never returned. Now suddenly it was hers, and she was planning family reunions. The next morning, I met Detective Vance at the County Administration Building in San Bernardino. She was in her 40s, professional and direct, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too many families destroy themselves over money. "Mr. Webb, thank you for coming in." She led me to a small conference room, where another man waited, older gray hair, wearing a county ID badge. "This is Howard Chen, our senior recorder. He's the one who initially flagged your stepmother's filing." Howard shook my hand. "Mr. Webb, I've been working in this office for 32 years. I've seen a lot of fraud attempts, but this one was particularly sloppy. The notary seal was wrong, the paper stock didn't match documents from that period, and frankly, the forged signature looked like someone copied it from a photograph and traced it. Not even a good forgery." Detective Vance opened a file. "Walk me through the timeline. When did your father die?" "April 12, 2023. Pancreatic cancer." "And the will was read when?" "April 20th. 8 days later, the attorney Gerald Morrison read it to the family. Diane was there, her kids were there, my aunt and uncle, my father's business partner. Everyone heard that the cabin went to me." How did Diane react? I remembered that day clearly. The lawyer's office with its leather chairs and mahogany desk. Diane sitting rigid, her face carefully neutral as Gerald read through the bequests. She didn't say anything at the time, but later, in the parking lot, she told me that Dad had promised her the cabin, that he'd changed his mind before he died, but didn't have time to update the will. She said it wasn't fair, that she needed the cabin for her family memories. "What did you say?" "I told her Dad and I built that cabin together, that it was never hers to begin with." She got angry, said I was being selfish, that I already had my mother's life insurance money, and didn't need anything else from Dad. Detective Vance made notes. "When did you first learn about the attempted transfer?" 3 weeks ago. I got a letter from a property management company, asking if I wanted to list the cabin as a vacation rental. They said the new owner, Diane, had contacted them about managing the property. I called the county recorder's office immediately. Howard pulled out a document. "That's when you reached our fraud hotline. We pulled the recent filings, and found the quitclaim deed dated March 15, 2023. I flagged it immediately, because the notary seal was obviously fake. It had the wrong border pattern, and an invalid registration number. We contacted Detective Vance, and she opened an investigation. I've also subpoenaed your father's medical records from Desert Regional Medical Center," Detective Vance added. "He was admitted on March 12 with severe pain, and remained hospitalized until March 22. The nurse's notes show he was on continuous morphine infusion, barely responsive. There's no possible way he could have met with a notary, understood what he was signing, or provided a legal signature on March 15. So what's next? We confront Diane. We'll ask her to come in for an interview. We'll show her the evidence, and give her a chance to explain. Most likely, she'll either claim she didn't know the documents were fake, maybe she'll say someone else prepared them, or she'll lawyer up immediately. Either way, the district attorney will review the case for prosecution. How long does that take? Could be weeks, could be months. Property fraud cases aren't high priority, unless there's a lot of money involved, or a pattern of behavior. But the evidence here is solid. She filed documents she knew were false with the intent to steal property worth. What's the cabin valued at? The last appraisal was $675,000. Detective Vance nodded. Grand theft real property, that's a felony with a potential sentence of 2 to 4 years in state prison. I sat back, processing this. I don't want to destroy her life. I just want my father's cabin back. I understand. But Mr. Webb, she didn't just make a mistake. She created fake documents, forged your father's signature, invented a fake notary, and filed it all with the county knowing it was fraudulent. If we let people do that without consequences, everyone would try it. 2 days later, Diane came in for her interview. I wasn't present, but Detective Vance called me afterward. She denied everything, the detective said. Claims someone must have filed the documents using her name. Says she never intended to transfer the property. Doesn't know anything about a quitclaim deed. Suggests maybe you filed the fake documents yourself to frame her. That's insane. It's also provably false. We have her signature on the filing paperwork. We have emails from her to the property management company discussing rental income. We have text messages to her daughter, talking about the cabin being hers now. She's lying, and she's not good at it. What happens now? The DA reviews the case. If they decide to prosecute, which I think they will, Diane will be arrested and charged. She'll have the option to take a plea deal, or go to trial. Given the evidence, most defense attorneys would recommend a plea, and the cabin, the fraudulent deed is voided. The property reverts to you, the rightful owner according to your father's will. That part's already done, actually. The county recorder has corrected the records. You own the cabin, free and clear. I drove up to Big Bear that weekend for the first time since Dad died. The cabin sat nestled among ponderosa pines at 7,000 feet elevation, the A-frame rising steeply toward the sky. Dad's truck was still in the driveway. I'd kept it insured and registered, but couldn't bring myself to sell it. The key was where we always kept it, under the third rock from the left in the fire pit. Inside, everything was exactly as we'd left it. Dad's fishing rods in the corner, his collection of National Geographic magazines, the wood stove we'd installed together, the loft bedroom, where I'd slept as a teenager. I found myself crying for the first time since the funeral. Not from sadness exactly, but from the weight of it all. Dad had protected this place, even while dying, had made sure it would stay in our family, had trusted me to preserve what we'd built together. And Diane had tried to take it. Not because she wanted it, she'd hated this cabin, but because she could, because she thought she could get away with it, because to her it was just an asset to monetize. My phone rang. Detective Vance. Mr. Webb, the DA filed charges this morning. Your stepmother has been charged with 3 felonies, grand theft, forgery in the first degree, and filing false documents. There's a warrant for her arrest. She'll probably turn herself in with her attorney, rather than having deputies pick her up, but either way, she's facing serious consequences. How serious? If convicted on all counts, she's looking at 4 to 6 years. With a plea deal, maybe 18 months to 2 years. First offense, no prior record. She might get probation instead of prison time, if she pays full restitution and admits guilt. Restitution for what? She didn't actually steal the cabin. Legal fees, investigation costs, your attorney fees for defending your ownership, could be $30,000 to $50,000 total. That evening Amanda called me, my stepsister, who'd been showing me Pinterest boards at that Sunday dinner 3 weeks ago. Marcus, what the hell did you do? I protected my property. Mom was arrested today. Arrested. Do you know how humiliating that was? The deputies came to the house. Our neighbors saw everything. She committed fraud, Amanda. She forged documents and tried to steal property that didn't belong to her. It's just a stupid cabin. You could have shared it. You could have worked something out. Instead, you had to ruin her life. She ruined her own life when she decided to commit multiple felonies. I didn't file those fake documents. She did. You're just like your mother, cold and selfish. My mom said your dad only married her because he was lonely after your mom died, that he never really loved our family. Then she should be happy she got the house and the life insurance and half his retirement money. But she wasn't. She wanted everything, including something that was never hers to begin with. Amanda hung up on me. Kyle texted later that night. Hey Marcus, sorry about all this. My mom messed up. I know that cabin meant a lot to you and your dad. Hope we can still be cool. I texted back. We're cool. This isn't about you. The preliminary hearing was set for 6 weeks later. Diane's attorney tried to get the charges dismissed, arguing insufficient evidence, but the judge reviewed the documents and ordered Diane to stand trial. 2 days before trial was scheduled to begin, Diane's attorney called the DA with a plea offer. She'd plead guilty to one count of filing false documents in exchange for dropping the theft and forgery charges. Sentencing recommendation: 2 years probation, $45,000 restitution, 200 hours community service. The DA called to ask my opinion. It's not enough, I said. She tried to steal a $675,000 property. She forged my dead father's signature. She lied to investigators. 2 years probation. I understand your frustration, Mr. Webb, but trials are expensive and uncertain. This way, she has a felony on her record. She pays restitution, and you get closure. If we go to trial and lose on a technicality, she walks away with nothing. What are the chances of that? Small, but not zero. The evidence is solid, but juries can be unpredictable. She's a middle-aged woman with no criminal record. Her attorney will paint her as a grieving widow who made a mistake trying to settle her late husband's affairs. Some jurors might buy it. I thought about Dad, about the hundreds of hours we'd spent building that cabin, the blisters and sunburns, the satisfaction of seeing something we'd created with our own hands, about the Christmases and the fishing trips, and the quiet evenings sitting on the deck watching stars so bright and numerous. They looked like someone had spilled diamonds across the sky. Take the plea, I said finally, but I want a full admission of guilt on the record. I want her to stand in court and say she knowingly filed fraudulent documents. No excuses, no claims of misunderstanding. She admits what she did. I'll make that part of the deal. The sentencing hearing was on a Thursday morning in early October. I sat in the courtroom as Diane stood before Judge Patricia Reeves, her attorney beside her. Miss Webb, the judge said, reading from the plea agreement, you're pleading guilty to one count of filing false documents with intent to defraud. Do you understand the charge? Yes, Your Honor. Diane's voice was barely audible. And you admit that on or about June 15, 2024, you knowingly filed fraudulent property transfer documents with the San Bernardino County Recorder's Office, said documents containing forged signatures and fake notary seals, with the intent to illegally transfer ownership of real property located at 2847 Pinecrest Drive, Big Bear Lake, California. Diane was silent for a long moment. Her attorney whispered something to her. Yes, Your Honor, I admit that. And you understand that by pleading guilty, you're waiving your right to trial and accepting the consequences of your criminal actions. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Reeves looked at Diane over her reading glasses. Miss Webb, I've reviewed the case file. You attempted to steal property worth nearly $750,000 from your late husband's son by forging documents and lying to county officials. The only reason you're not going to prison today is because this is your first offense and you've agreed to pay full restitution. But make no mistake, if you violate your probation, if you fail to make restitution payments, if you commit any other crimes, you will serve the maximum sentence. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. 2 years probation, $45,000 restitution to be paid to Marcus Webb at $500 per month, 200 hours community service to be completed within 1 year. And Miss Webb, stay away from that cabin. Don't go near it. Don't contact Mr. Webb about it. Don't even drive past it. If I hear you've violated this order, I'll revoke your probation immediately. Clear? Yes, Your Honor. Diane left the courtroom without looking at me. Amanda followed her, shooting me a glare that could have frozen water. Kyle paused, gave me an awkward nod, then hurried after his mother. Outside, Detective Vance found me on the courthouse steps. How do you feel? She asked. Honestly, empty. I thought I'd feel vindicated or satisfied or something. Instead, I just feel tired. That's normal. Family betrayals are always the hardest cases. No one wins. She's going to hate me forever. Probably. But you protected your father's legacy. That's what matters. I drove up to Big Bear that weekend. The October air was crisp, the aspens turning gold among the pines. I built a fire in the wood stove and sat on the deck as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Kyle. Mom's moving to Arizona to live with her sister. She can't make the restitution payments and hold on to the house. She's selling it. Just thought you should know. Also, I'm sorry for what she did. Your dad was a good guy. He didn't deserve this, and neither did you. I texted back, thanks for telling me. And Kyle, you're welcome at the cabin anytime. Your family, regardless of what your mom did. He sent back a thumbs up emoji. Inside the cabin I found the photo album Dad had kept in the bookshelf. Pictures of us building the place. Me at 14 holding boards, while Dad measured, both of us covered in sawdust and grinning. The frame going up, the roof being shingled, the deck being stained. Mom in a few early photos, before the car accident that took her when I was 12. And later pictures too. Dad with Diane in front of the completed cabin, that one visit she'd made. She looked uncomfortable even then, out of place in hiking boots and a flannel shirt, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. She'd never wanted this place. She'd just wanted to win, to take something from me, to prove she mattered more in Dad's life than I did. But Dad had known. He'd seen through her even while loving her, had protected what mattered while trying to build a new family. His will hadn't been cruel. It had been realistic, acknowledging that Diane would be fine with the house and insurance money, while the cabin needed someone who understood its real value. The next morning, I hiked up to Cougar Crest Trail, the path Dad and I used to take every visit. The views opened up after about a mile. The entire valley spread below, the lake sparkling in the morning sun, the mountains rolling away toward the horizon. I thought about Diane in Arizona, probably bitter and angry, telling anyone who'd listen how her ungrateful stepson had ruined her life over a stupid cabin. I thought about Amanda, loyal to her mother, viewing me as the villain. I thought about Kyle, caught in the middle, trying to maintain relationships with everyone. And I thought about Dad, who'd built this place board by board, who'd taught me that some things matter more than money, who trusted me to understand the difference between price and value. The restitution payments started arriving the next month, $500 on the first of each month, exactly as ordered. I put each payment into a savings account, not sure what I'd do with the money. Maybe eventually I'd use it for repairs on the cabin, improvements Dad would have approved of. Maybe I'd donate it to the Big Bear Lake Fire Department. Maybe I'd give it to Kyle for college. 6 months later, I got a wedding invitation. Kyle was getting married, young, only 18, but apparently sure about his choice. The wedding would be in Arizona at his aunt's house. A handwritten note was tucked inside. I know things are complicated, but I hope you'll come. You're still my brother, even if we're only related by marriage. Mom won't be happy about it, but this is my wedding, not hers. I RSVP'd yes. The wedding was small, casual, held in a backyard, with folding chairs and string lights. Diane saw me arrive, and her face went rigid, but she didn't make a scene. Amanda ignored me completely, but Kyle lit up when he saw me, introduced me to his bride Sarah, insisted I sit in the front row. During the reception, Kyle pulled me aside. Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you would. Your family, I said simply. Mom's doing better. She got a job at a pharmacy, found an apartment she likes. She's still angry about everything, but she's moving on. That's good. She asked me to ask you something. She wants to know if you'd be willing to forgive her, not forget. She knows that's not possible, but maybe someday, forgive. I looked across the yard where Diane stood talking to relatives, her back to me. She looked older, more tired, the consequences of her choices written in the lines around her eyes. Tell her I'll think about it, I said. That's the most honest answer I can give. Kyle nodded. That's fair. 2 years after the sentencing, the final restitution payment arrived. $45,000 total, paid in full as ordered. With it was a card, no signature, but I recognized Diane's handwriting. I'm sorry for what I did. I know that's not enough. I know I destroyed any chance of us being family. I hope someday you can think of me without anger. The cabin is where it should be, with you and your father's memory, Diane. I kept the card but didn't respond. Some wounds heal with time, but the scars remain. Forgiveness isn't always possible, and sometimes the kindest thing is simply to move forward without pretending the past didn't happen. The cabin remains my sanctuary. Every Christmas, every summer, whenever the world feels too heavy, I drive up the mountain to the place Dad and I built together. I've added on over the years, a new deck, better insulation, solar panels for the electricity, improvements Dad would have approved of, changes that honor the original structure while making it better. Kyle visits sometimes, bringing Sarah and eventually their daughter. I teach her the things Dad taught me, how to identify trees, how to spot deer tracks, how to sit quietly, and let the forest reveal itself. The county recorder's office eventually sent me a commemorative plaque. They do it for cases that result in successful fraud prosecutions. It reads, "In recognition of protecting property rights and supporting the integrity of public records." I keep it in a drawer, not displayed. The real recognition is simpler. The cabin still stands, still belongs to the person who should have it, still carries the legacy of the man who built it. That's the inheritance that matters, not the property itself, but the principle it represents, that some things are worth protecting. That truth matters, that families who betray trust face consequences, and that sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone against the people who should have stood beside you. The mountain doesn't care about any of this. The pines keep growing, the seasons keep changing, and the cabin keeps standing, a monument to a father's foresight and a son's determination to honor it.